Welcome to Dragon in the Room. This is Pili. Today we're going to interview an anti-CCP activist. We'll call him Han Style in today's show. We cannot tell you his real name because we want to protect his identity from the Chinese Communist Party, which seek to silence and punish our critics. Han Style immigrated to Canada 20 years ago and has lived a life of ease with his wife and children ever since. However, when he looks back at his life in China, his memory is often dragged back to the moment of 1989. That year, Han Style, with thousands of young people like him, started a vigorous and decisive fight for liberty, human rights, and freedom in the Tiananmen Square. He remembered that on the bloody night of June 4th, the CCP revealed its evil nature to the world. That night, he heard gunshots and saw grieving, traumatized people. His classmates and he were running and crying. Another of his classmates was hit by a bullet and killed. June 4th is a wound in his heart that can never be healed. Since then, hopes for internal reform of the CCP have been disillusioned, and the only way out is to take down the CCP's dictatorship. The Tiananmen Square protest was forcefully ended when the PLA, armed with assault rifles and accompanied by tanks, fired at the demonstrators. The estimated death toll varies from several hundred to several thousand, with thousands more wounded. It is known as the Tiananmen Square Massacre. Many of the protest leaders was imprisoned, and some of them were sentenced to death. The students' movement for freedom and democracy eventually ended in failure. Han Style didn't give up and continued to write poems and articles to spread the spirit of liberty and political openness. The symbol of resistance against the tyrannical regime of the CCP, the goddess of the democracy, appears in Han Style's dreams many times, and was a constant reminder for him to fulfill his calling. Over 30 years later, in 2017, Han Style accidentally discovered a YouTube video. In the video, a Chinese anti-CCP whistleblower, Miles Guo, passionately exposes the brutality and corruption of the CCP. For example, how the CCP rules the Chinese people as mafias, and how the CCP suppresses innocent civilians by using illegal police power, and how the CCP high officials transfer trillions of dollars to their own pockets. Han Style was attracted by Miles' determination to take down the CCP. It triggered his motivation to fight for democracy. He joined the anti-CCP movement without hesitation, and has actively participated in activating how the CCP suppresses Chinese people and punishes critics, and how the CCP is poisoning the world with the COVID-19 virus. We call it CCP virus, and how the CCP brutally harvests organs from detainees. Now, let's hear from Han Style himself. Han Style, welcome to Dragon in the Room. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself first?
I was born in the 1960s during the Cultural Revolution. When I was a child, I received the standard CCP early enslavement education. Just like Mr. Guo Wengui said, we were educated since childhood so that we understood the need to fight for communism for our lifetime, and all the heroes we saw were dedicated to the CCP.
I know the moment of discovering Mao's online was a big shock for you. Can you tell us your thoughts back then?
Oh, I saw the first video of Mr. Guo at the beginning of 2017, which broke my inner peace. I couldn't believe that there could be such a hero in our generation. His firm eyes and his courage, but also his shouting again and again, awakened the long time lost flame deep in my heart. Mr. Guo is not only the leader of the whistleblower movement, but more importantly, he's also a spiritual inspiration, reshaping the image of our Chinese people. And his words, his courage, is the model of our citizens of the new federal state of China. More than 4 years have passed, and now I can proudly say that I'm also one of the thousands of whistleblower movement supporters who have never left Mr. Guo.
You just mentioned that you and Miles are in the same generation. What are the characteristics of the CCP ideology in your generation?
Thinking of my childhood, we have been planted with two kinds of poison in our minds since we were children. One is hatred, and the other is fear. I remember when I was young, they told me that you have to hate the old society, hate the rich people, hate class enemies, hate capitalism. You gotta hate everything except the CCP. Then also, there's a fear. To give a simple example, I once asked a senior CCP officer, and my question was, did people feed the party or the party feed the people? I didn't get an answer for a long time. I know at the moment there are only two things in his mind. First, he needs to find out what kind of answer that his party needs. Second, fear. Whether you are inside the wall or overseas, please ask yourself, before you criticize the CCP, does fear come first in your mind?
These are all the great questions for us to think about. So, when you look back to 1989, what do you want to say to your generation?
Well, I actually really want to have a good chat with my peers, those born in 60s and 70s. How our generation is enslaved, and the fear and the hatred that the CCP has planted in our blood. And I also want to talk about our ideals, our courage that we had when we were young, and most importantly, our responsibilities to the next generation. Please tell the next generation the story of our young. At least let them know that we once had ideals and we were brave. Don't let the children look down on us, right? I'm also full of guilt when facing them. Why? Because we owe them. We owe them a free world.
That's very powerful. We owe them a free world. Hansel, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your endeavor to the new Federal State of China with liberty, freedom, and rule of law. We hope Chinese people and the people all over the world can hear us, see us, and resonate with us. Like Hansel said, we owe our children a free world. Let's work together to take down the CCP and bring back to our children a beautiful world with love and care. This is Dragon in the Room. Dragon in the room, it's time to ask, think, and tell. Thank you for watching. See you next time. This is GTalk.